everybody on live stream. Nice to see you, and hello to everybody on just been talking to people on here. Tap to mute. Okay, sorry. Hello everybody on the live stream on Telegram, and hello everybody the live stream on YouTube. Sorry, there's lots of different monitors. This is very exciting, and I seem to have disappeared to the people in Telegram. I'm like a tiny head now. I'm sorry. Let's see if I can make that better. Yeah, I can. Yeah, nice. So today I thought I would do something different. I'm not sure if it's going to work properly for the people that are watching me in Telegram, because I need to use the app YouTube to play the audio from a talk. So I find it fascinating learning about what our society calls cults. I think because I've been in the spiritual scene for so long, you know, I got into it incredibly young in age, that I got into it and so young that sorry, I just get distracted by the messages on Telegram. Okay, I got into the subject so young that there is a fascination with the cults, because I've watched so many cults, or what I would determine as cults, or what a society determines as cults, form. And also I think I've experienced in the past like cultic or religious or spiritual abuse, which I'm sure a lot of people have. And and so there's just been a fascination of it. So I thought today I would play a talk from Lori Vallow. I think her name's Lori Vallow, and then talk about it. So just as a bit of a backstory, Lori Vallow was devout Christian, Mormon, and she got into very extreme beliefs with some other Mormon people, and they set up like an organization. There was like a group of them, and they began to get into these ideas of people being taken over by zombies, and then they killed the zombies because they thought that they were taken over by zombies and they were no longer the people that they knew, and that included 2 of her children. So she killed 2 of her children because she thought they'd been taken over by zombies. The courts have like diagnosed her with delusional personality, delusional disorder, narcissistic disorder, and a whole array of different things. But I thought her awakening story was really interesting and something that we could talk about. And because it could be that she's completely lying, but from what it sounds like, there was an awakening that happened, and then the awakening was interpreted in many ways, which kind of sent it a little bit psychotic. Not a little bit, massively psychotic, actually. Yeah. Okay, so we'll listen to her testimony about her awakening and about the reasons why she did all the things that she did. Maybe some of you know about it. And then I'm going to discuss the awakening and what I think happened. I don't know what's going to happen to people in Telegram. Somebody says that it's echoing, and I can see lots of messages to me, but I can't read them when I'm live. If it's not very good quality, you can watch on YouTube. The live stream is here, so you can ask questions later on. So you can kind of dive in and out of it, I suppose, if you want to come back and ask questions. But you can also watch through Telegram. But if it is echoing, I'm so teched up, there's not many more spaces in my iPad for microphones or anything. I don't think, unless I put on my Bluetooth headphones, maybe. Okay, so I don't know what's going to happen to Telegram when I go into YouTube and play it. So if I disappear, I will be back after that's finished. Okay, so you can listen to her awakening experience, and this is from when she's been found guilty of killing her kids and killing and conspiring to kill her partner's, her husband's ex-wife or widow, and some other charges as well. And this is her response to the court after she's been found guilty. They gave her an opportunity to speak.
I'd like to start by quoting John from the New Testament in the Bible. In John chapter 8, verse 7, Jesus says, "He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her." Then in verse 15, Jesus says, "Ye judge after the flesh, I judge no man. And yet if I judge, my judgment is true." Jesus knows me. And Jesus understands me. I mourn with all of you who mourn my children and Tammy. Jesus Christ knows the truth of what happened here. Jesus Christ knows that no one was murdered in this case. Accidental deaths happen. Suicides happen. Fatal side effects from medications happen. I have a different perspective in life because in 2002, when I was pregnant with Tylee, I died in the hospital while in labor with her. They tried to stop my labor. They put me on the table and they put something in my IV, and I felt my spirit falling to the floor. I was standing near my pregnant body, watching the doctors try to revive me, which took them a few minutes. In that time, my sister Stacy was standing to my left. I turned to hug her and was surprised that her spirit was as tangible as a physical body, because I knew I was in spirit and she was in spirit. She said she needed to show me some things, and we went to heaven. I later returned to my body. Because of this experience, I have access to heaven and the spirit world. Since then, I have had many communications from people now living in heaven, including my children, Tylee Ashlyn and Joshua Jackson, my sisters, Stacy and Lolly, my aunts and my uncles, and my grandparents. I have had many communications with Jesus Christ, the Savior of this world, and our heavenly parents. I've had many angelic visitors have come and communicated with me and even manifested themselves to me. Because of these communications, I know for a fact that my children are happy and busy in the spirit world. Because of my communications with my friend Tammy Daybell, I know that she is also very happy and extremely busy. I have always mourned the loss of my loved ones, and I have lost many in this mortal world. However, I know them more than most people. I know where they are now and what they're doing. I know how wonderful heaven is, and I'm homesick for it every single day. I know we all lived in heaven before we were born on earth, and we were all adult spirits in the heavenly realm. We chose to come to earth as mortals. Heaven is more wonderful than you can possibly imagine. I do not fear death, but I look forward to it. I did not want to return to my body when I was out of it. Even though my son Colby, who I adored more than anything, was only 6 years old at the time, and I was about to give birth to this new baby girl that I wanted so badly. I was a young mother, and you would think I wouldn't want to leave my children, but as I stood in heaven, I did not want to go back. I thought they would be fine. without me because I was peaceful and I was happy and I was home. But then I was told by Jesus that I needed to go back and complete things that I had covenanted or promised to do before I was born. This caused me a lot of distress because I knew heaven was my real home, and I only wanted to be there. I was free from pain, emotional and physical. But then I was shown how I would help my children and others in the future, so ultimately I did agree to go back to my body. Kylie has visited me. She is happy and very busy. Kylie is free now from all the pains of her life. Kylie suffered horrible physical pain her whole life. I sat with Kylie in the hospital year after year after year while she screamed in pain when the morphine wasn't even enough to take away the pain of her pancreatitis. I sat there while she cried and I held back her hair while she threw up. I'm the only person on this earth who knows how much Kylie suffered in her life. She had pain every single day. She never felt good. Her body did not work right, and I don't know if that was from complications from me dying while she was being born or something else, but she had a very difficult life. She was sexually abused by her own biological father when she was 3 years old, and she was forced by family court to go visit him for 10 years against her will. I fought for her in court. I protected her. I tried to protect her with my whole life. I tried to protect her. I worried about her every single day. Kylie had to get her GED because she couldn't go to school every day because she never felt good. She felt sick. Nobody knows this because Kylie, like myself, tried to put on a good front, tries to be a happy person, tries to have hope in life, tries to know that she's here for a purpose and that she has an eternal purpose to be on this earth. But I never stopped worrying about her. One of the times that Kylie came to me as a spirit after she died, she commanded me and she said to me, "Stop worrying, Mom. We are fine." She knows how I worry and how I miss her. The first time JJ visited me after he passed away, he put his arm around me and he said to me, "You didn't do anything wrong, Mom. I love you, and I know you loved me every minute of my life." JJ, Joshua Jackson, was an adult spirit, and he was very, very tall when he put his arm around me. He is busy, he is engaged, he has jobs that he does there, and he is happy where he is. His life was short, but JJ's life was meaningful. JJ was a wonderful person and touched the lives of everyone, and I adored him every minute of his life. My eternal friend Tammy Daybell has visited me on several occasions. She came to bring me peace and comfort, and I know that she is extremely busy helping her family, especially her children and grandchildren, and I have a great love for Tammy. My beautiful children, Kylie Ashlyn and Joshua Jackson, rest safely this day in the arms of Jesus. My wonderful friend Tammy Daybell rests safely this day in the arms of Jesus. And I look forward to the day when we are all reunited and I too will rest with them in the arms of my Jesus.
Okay, so that is all. I'm sure that that's a little confusing for some people that are not used or familiar to the case. So basically, they killed, like she was talking about her friend Tammy that she saw, the kids that she saw, and they killed them because they thought they were infiltrated by zombies, by dark energy. And this is her speaking basically about the situation and how she believes that she helped them. She doesn't say that directly, but it's kind of like the feel to it. It's also most probably really delusional, and it's also most probably very narcissistic and inability to take any responsibility. But what fascinates me about it is the spiritual awakening, and then how that can get immersed in all types of grandiose stories and all types of different stories. So it seems her spiritual awakening, if she's not lying, she might be lying, but it seems like her spiritual awakening was when she died, when she gave birth to her child. And her interpretation of that, coming from Christianity, was that she died and she went to heaven. And she met people that she had known before, and met them and spoke with them and conversed with them. And she describes it as heaven, like it's heavenly, as a really beautiful experience, like it's more beautiful than this world, and that she didn't want to come back. So this is my interpretation on what I think is happening in that moment. I feel that she's having a non-dual awakening. So when the body is dying, when the body is falling asleep, or even if you knock your head and pass out or something, or if there's some type of issue, there can be a spiritual awakening that happens where you lose your sense of self. So you lose the character in which you believe you've always been, the illusory person, the story of you. And when you lose the story of you, there is this expanding back into consciousness of what you are. So there's an expanding back, or you could say the no-thingness of what you are. And there's an expanding back into that, and this love and this contentment which takes over. It's total love and contentment. And that can happen, I believe, from a near-death experience, because I don't know for sure. I've not scientifically dissected a body and examined what's happening, but there is this release that's happening, like the brain, or there is a release, or your memory can't remember who you are, and there is a release from this narrative of me, 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 me. So in something like near-death experiences, you often hear things like going towards light, or being in bliss, or being on ecstasy, or being in the most peaceful place there is on earth. And to me, I feel what's happening is there is a release of the sense of self and a non-dual awakening. Now, of course, you must be thinking, of course I'd say that because that's my alliances. I have like an alliance to non-duality. But we'll go further into this as we speak more about this subject. So then what begins to happen is imaginations begin to come up, or what I feel imagining is. So to her, this is reality. She went to another world. She went to the afterlife. That is what is true for her. But for me, I feel like wisps of imaginings begin to come up. So your brain is trying to interpret what's happening, and it creates things that it's been told or it believes in this life. So it's like you're fading out of being you, but then like a dream at night, this other dream takes over and tells you stories in which your heart desires. So if there is like a strong belief in the afterlife, then there'll be a meeting of people that have died, people that have crossed over, or all different types of things. I could be wrong. It could actually be something that happens, but I feel like it's imaginings of the brain. We could then question what the brain is. Like we can then go on for infinity, because it could be like the one brain. And there's nothing wrong with these imaginings. And in a way, these imaginings are not any more real or less real than this reality, because this reality is all created by the brain. But there's still wisps of these imaginings, and so a dream kind of takes place. And because it's so heavenly and orgasmic, these experiences of oneness, it tends to be something really positive that happens. So often people come back from these experiences having profound shifts in perspective. I don't mean to dismiss any of these experiences. And if that is somebody's reality, then I'm so happy to validate that reality, because in the end, I don't know. But this is just my perspective on it. And then after that experience, so when she comes back to her body and when she goes home, you know, she died in childbirth, and when she goes home with her child, this awakening that she's had will actually have really profoundly changed the system. You can't unforget awakening, and I'm sure there's many people out there that have had awakenings. They are so profound, and it's really different from the way in which regular people live their life. It's like unity, it's like oneness, it's what everybody's been seeking for. It's as if all questioning, all sense of insecurity, all sense of not knowing has been resolved. Even though it's not resolved in a thought, it's resolved in your heart. You're absolutely at home and contented, and there's no questions around anything. It's not like you know everything, but there's just no questions around anything. It's total and utter intimacy with what is. And that profoundly changes the body. I do feel like it can have immense healing impact on the body, because it's delodging the narrative of you. And the narrative of you have kept in a lot of psychological play. And it most probably stimulates neuroplasticity. So there is like intense healing that can happen from that. But then how do you interpret that experience? So that's the important part. So, and this is where I feel like religions and cults and not all the time, but a lot of the time spring from the interpretation of that experience. There's also narcissism and control and money and all these other things that happen in cults. But there is this, often the cult leader has actually had some form of spiritual awakening. You often hear near-death experiences, or like Ramana Maharshi. I don't believe he set up a cult, but maybe he did in the end. I wasn't there, I don't know. He had a big following. Was like a near-death experience. So there's this like many of them. Like if you took like what's another big, like Adidar. I'm not saying he's a cult leader, although I have heard some very negative things about that community. Like if we took Adidar, like he had profound awakenings in the beginning of it. So there is these awakenings that happen, but then how are they interpreted into the system? And that, I think, depends on the knowledge of the body-mind system beforehand, and also the personality susceptibilities that were there beforehand. So if you've got more tendency towards narcissism or towards grandiosity, then you might go into creating a cult, because you might then interpret this experience as like you are Jesus or you are God, or you're better than other people. And these are really subtle things. Like it might not come across like they're saying that, but in the end, a lot of these cults are like that. It's like you've got this one charismatic leader, and then lots of people doing the manual labor around them and fulfilling their needs. But the cult leader will always say, I'm doing all of this for you. I'm giving every part of myself for you. You know, I'm cleaning your karma. I'm cleaning your energy. You're blessed to be around me. And even if they don't directly say that, in allowing an organization to be around them that's saying that is kind of like, is them. They're just not articulating it, which might be like a more smart thing, but they're getting other people to articulate it for them. So they're alive, and they might not be saying how brilliant they are, but everybody around them is advertising their brilliance and their magic and the wonder they do and the miracles they perform and how much they help people. And the cult leader knows that's happening. He's not naive to it, or she's not naive to it. Like something that I experience in talks sometimes or retreats is people looking at me with so much adoration. and how I deal with that. In the beginning, I always made sure that I had exactly the same chair as everybody else, and I was on the same level, and all these types of things. And I tried to bring myself down so people wouldn't put me up. And I would feel shy and embarrassed and uncomfortable with people's adoration of me and attempts to put me up on a pedestal. It gave me the heebie-jeebies. I felt like it wasn't right. I'm not saying that people can't admire something you do, but like, why would you encourage that? Like, if you're balanced, like, why would you want to encourage admiration? If you're balanced, you just want intimacy, like, and recognition and harmony with people, and you don't want to be somebody that's higher than other people. Like, that doesn't feel in line. If there's insecurity there, then maybe you do want to be higher than other people because you feel insecure. I have to say now, latterly, as I descend into older age, which is still not a great age, I do pick comfortable chairs. I sometimes take my own chair to have comfortable time when I'm giving talks. And sometimes if people can't see, then I will sit on the stage because, there's practicalities to it as well. But I'm not saying I'm perfect. Like, I can completely understand how I've played into delusions of people and all different types of things. But this is the really interesting thing. So for everybody that's listening, like, what has been your narrative of your awakenings, if you've had awakening, or what is your narrative about wanting awakening or other people's awakening? Because in the end, what non-duality says is it's all illusory. And this is what I love about non-duality, is it doesn't give these whole fantasies of Jesus Christ and the afterlife and the Father and the gods and performing all these things. It's like what we come back to is everything is an illusion, including my own awakening. The only freedom there is and the reality there is what is. So what is the illusions that you or anybody, and including me, you're welcome to point out to me delusions I get caught into, which people do, I'll be talking about my awakening and then somebody will say, but that's confusing to me because that's also illusory. And I'm like, yeah, that is illusory. Like, so there's an apparent story, but in the end it's illusory and it doesn't mean anything. Like, the story of my awakening or your awakening or Ramana Maharshi's awakening doesn't mean anything. It's used for teaching purposes, and I'm happy to use it for that. But in the end, it's not here. It's only here in imaginings. What is here is this radical freedom. So what I feel like happened to Lori is there was an awakening, most probably, unless she's even lying about that, which she could be. She is like obviously got narcissistic personality, and then also paranoia or delusion as well. So this could be a lie, but it could also be genuine. I could understand that at the beginning of all this, there was a genuine awakening that happened, and then a seeping more and more into illusion. And because already she had personality disorders, she already had maybe paranoia or the not psychosis, delusional personality, mental health issues, maybe mania, and then narcissism, and maybe even borderline or other personality issues. Then what happened is, and because she also came from Mormonism, there became all these really extreme beliefs, and it grew over. She didn't act it out until 2018, which is almost 20 years after that awakening in 2002. So it grew bit by bit. She most probably was attracted to anything that spoke about that awakening, and then there was most probably a chasing after it and a wanting to get closer, and the ideas getting more and more radical, and then the personality being unbalanced. Then narcissism attracting other people towards her, is her and her partner, which are apparently the leaders of the cult. All these different things feeding into it. And then like Jesus Christ's story, believing in Jesus Christ, the whole world believing, well, not the whole world, but her whole world, living in Utah, believing in Jesus Christ and Mormonism, and like most people believing in religion and spirituality, her belief in being able to speak to the other world, her feeling of heaven, that it's a greater place than this. So then that begins to excuse, like, it doesn't excuse killing people, but I can see how the brain goes there. It's a really extreme case, and I'm not saying this happens to everyone that has awakening or anything. I'm just talking about the extremity of it. I can see how that happens in people. And also, when you have awakening, it does undo the mind in a way and makes you incredibly open-minded. And the problem with open-minded people is that other people are always trying to fill that open-mindedness up with other ideas. So there's maybe all these things going on, like these personality issues, and then the awakening, and then the desperately seeking back for that, and then getting more and more deluded into all these like very abstract ideas. And to me, awakening is very simple. It's the realization in who you truly are, which is beingness, here, thisness, isness. And it's not intellectual. There's no capabilities in it to go into delusion, because it's beyond delusion. Delusion can only have a play in the dualistic language, in the dualistic thinking. Delusion cannot happen in beingness, in the intimacy of right here-ness. Yeah. You have it across the board with all types of different teachers and awakening, like are going into delusions about it and stories. I don't mean to sound dismissive, about their stories, because in a way, part of this life is having stories. Like, we are humans with the ability to think in a complex manner. But yeah, that's my perspective on it. Is everything we think is ultimately a delusion, and so then to believe in that and believe it's true, and then to teach other people that it's true, is delusionary. If you could say, open-mindedly, like, this is how I feel, or this is what I think is happening, but knowing that that isn't the ultimate fixed reality, then that's different. So it's fascinating when you investigate these different organizations and the teacher and how that came about. I'm not saying that every teacher that has an organization is creating a cult or in delusion, but it's fascinating looking at it. And then using that as a teaching tool. And what ideas do you have about a you that's awakening in the future? Can you see that that isn't a truth? That there isn't a you there that's awakening in the future? There is a story of a you there awakening in the future. But there is this presence that has no story, and that's who you truly are. And that's the awakening. Even teaching of no self or teaching of consciousness, in a way, is going too far. It's too many ideas, in a way. Like, in a way, the best way of teaching is absolute silence, because any words, create delusion. Like the idea of no self can become a cult. I've seen it in groups. Like, after 12 years of teaching now, and before that 12 years of spiritual seeking, I'm very aware of these organizations that pop up, and I see organizations pop up around no self and people believing in it, and it looking more and more cult-like. Like, even that isn't a belief, that there is a self or isn't a self there. Like, that is a belief. That is an idea. So if you hold that to yourself, or if you hold consciousness to yourself, these are all ideas. So what is it that's beyond idea? What is it that has no idea? In this experience, it's experiencing but has no idea. That's not telling you need to be something, or you should be something, or you need to do something to get to me, or there is a path to me. That's not got any narrative to it. What happens to just have no idea now? Not on the personal level. Thoughts have ideas, but beyond that, to drop to a place that has no idea. What happens? So easily this becomes a belief system, and all types of problems arise. It's really not a belief system. It's really experiential. It's presence. It's coming back to what you've always been. Your mind is telling you, I am somebody that's arrived in this room. I am somebody that's leaving this room. I am somebody that's going to walk my dog, or go to bed, or listen to this talk, or do something. It's all different types of things it's telling you that you have been, or that you're going to be. But yet none of that's happening now. None of that is happening here. So what is happening here? And where is this person that you keep insisting that you are here? Who is it that's actually experiencing? The mind informs you that it's the character that is going to go and walk the dog later that is listening. But what is that? This character that's going to go and walk the dog. How is that person listening now? In your experience, in your direct experience, how is that person listening to me speak? There is listening happening by nobody. There is nothing listening. When there's like real deep meditation and contemplation into the nature of experience, it's seen that a person is an experience appearing in this. It's not an actual experiencer. And the illusion that you are this person is what creates suffering. So for Lori, when she had that awakening, maybe she wouldn't have listened to non-duality because there was that grandiose narcissistic mind she had to go into, grand stories. But if there had been a speaking about this, then maybe all these dramatic cult stories wouldn't have had to arise. Maybe could have, would have. It can't be any other way than what it is. But I'm just trying to express that, like, if she had really seen what the awakening was, there could have been a dropping a lot of stories, unnecessary stories. the attachment to the idea of being someone, to me, and in a lot of the non-duality teachings, is what is causing the problem. So there is an appearance of a character that comes and goes, that thinks, that chooses, that does all these things. That we need a character in order to function in this society. But that's not an experiencer. That is an experience. So who is the experiencer? And this is where God is. Okay, so if you want to ask a question, you can do in the Telegram group on the Lisa's channel, and you can put your hand up and I will come to you when I am ready. I'm not sure what happens when I pause, when I go into other applications on the iPad, if you can still hear and see me, if it pauses the stream. You can also write questions in Lisa Cairns's questions. There's already some in there. Yeah. Thank you. I have to go on my computer. Okay. So, Osborne has sent some questions from his channel. Osborne has another channel called Lisa Cairns video clips, I think, and he edits the talks I do into short videos, so you're welcome to subscribe to that. And here's some questions from that. He says, we are dreaming the dream of being human. It's so realistic it becomes real. How to see the dreamer is dreaming. How to learn to steer the dream. I like it how he asks, or she asks at the end of that question, how do we steer the dream? So how to see the dreamer is dreaming and how to learn to steer the dream. I wonder what's more important to that person, steering the dream or realizing that they're dreaming a dream. Ironically, the breaking of the attachment to the person is when pleasure in the dream isn't seen as the ultimate and pain isn't seen as the enemy. So when there's this belief in the person, that the person is experiencing, there's a loss of connection to the stillness of who you are, of your true self. So there's then this looking in the personal story for relief and for your freedom in the experiences. So pleasure becomes heightened. It becomes more exciting, but it also becomes more painful because there's a belief that you're going to arrive at freedom. It's not a conscious belief. It's like an underlying seeking that's happening. So what tends to happen for most people is a breaking of alliances with pleasure being the savior and pain being the enemy. And pleasure being the savior can come in the human form, it can come in money, it can come in home, it can become in job, security, all types of things. Like pleasure is my savior, and the enemy can be paranoia, fear of consequences of doing things, all types of things. So it's a relinquishing of that is not your savior. You will not be saved by time. It's not meaning make pleasure and pain your enemy or not giving them attention. It's just the break from believing that that is what you're truly looking for. Your true purpose on this planet is to get a certain amount of money, or even to become free. And how to learn steer the dream is more than likely coming out of a question of believing that pleasure is the relief to all your to all your problems. So I wouldn't focus so much on how to steer the dream. I would focus more on the illusion of the dream, and then this will become more apparent of how the character lives a life in this society. But there's also like loads of things out there now that can help you have a better dream, like lots of different therapies, energetic therapies, courses. There's so much psychological work that can be done that enables you to have a better dream. But that's not what's being talked about here. What's being talked about here is waking up from the dream. Yeah. Okay, another one. What is the difference between an awakening and the actual shift, or what's called liberation? Seems like there could be a gradual more fading out with this body. I wouldn't worry too much about all these definitions and these words. I just call everything awakening, and I don't call something liberation. I might have done in the past, but I tend to steer away from that now, because I suppose that idea of finite, if we go back to Lori Vallow, Lori Vallow, it just becomes, a new belief system, and a new thing that people arise to. It's really seeing through all thoughts, and who is the person that knows it's awakening or liberated, and the difference. It's that the thoughts come up and then there's a belief, okay, I need to be liberated, I need for this to be over. I have awakened and now I need to be liberated, I need the final shift. And all of this is in the dreamland. It's the disenchantment with the dreamland and seeing that who you truly are is this moment, is presence. And in that's appearing a you. And in the you can tidy up the vessel, you can make your life more happy through all these different therapies and energetic work. But non-duality is to seeing that that is not who you are. And this idea of even awakening or liberation, it's a way in which teachers are able to communicate about it. But as soon as it becomes a new goal for you, it's in fantasy of you awakening. That isn't true. There isn't a you awakening, only in your fantasy and only in your narrative. A narrative is helpful in other situations, but this one is about seeing beyond narrative. So if your partner is shouting at you, it's important to say, okay, the partner is being abusive, this is not appropriate behavior. So it's important to have narrative to be able to distinguish events. But in this subject, in non-duality, it's about seeing beyond the illusions. And in that is an illusion that there is a you that's going to become liberated one day. Who is going to become liberated? And it does seem in the apparent story of things, for a lot of people, there is this gradual fading out of being them. But it's just, I wouldn't even go to either of it, to either extremes. Yes, I've talked about my awakening, and other teachers do, because it's part of teaching, it's part of like expressing this subject, but it's all illusory. My awakening story is never with me except when I'm teaching. That's the only time I really ever think about it. Sometimes in my personal life it might come up, but most of the time it's irrelevant. What's relevant is what's here. There's not a Lisa here that's holding on to her awakening story. And like, beep, here it is, I've got my balloon, my Lisa awakening story. I'm so special, I've had this awakening. It's really not relevant. You're just getting into Lori Vallow Well, sorry, I don't mean to like say that people are becoming murderers and doing terrible things, but I mean like you could see in her story how she's got so delusional. I'm just saying you're getting into delusion about the story of awakening. If you're feeling really deeply uncomfortable, please go for therapies and do practices to help relax the system. This isn't about making you feel more comfortable. You know, if you're suffering, there's so many things out there on offer to reduce that suffering and to reduce that pain. This is about going beyond the story of you. And I don't mean to like dismiss people or make people feel bad about themselves or make them feel like they're doing something wrong. I'm just trying to really clearly point to the end of illusions. We're so lost in thinking, in thought. Yeah, thank you for your question, Florian. Hi, Lisa, I have a question. Is there non-duality in Christianity? I feel drawn to non-duality and at the same time a lot to Christianity. And that's interesting, Florian, that you wrote that before the talk, before you knew what I was going to talk about. And the sayings of Jesus, maybe it's not so far apart in essence. How do they relate to each other best, Florian? Thanks, Florian. Well, my feeling is that a lot of the people that started these organizations had an awakening. So there's non-duality seeping in and out of them, but then there's this grandiose delusions that they begin to go into. Not necessarily the teacher, like I don't know Jesus, and over 2,000 years ago, and I think Christianity's been very mixed with politics and lots of people's interpretation. But initially there was most probably an innocent awakening that I spoke of at the beginning, and then like lots of stories have arisen around it. Like the awakening in this life is like the highest thing that can happen in the sense of it's absolute freedom. So it's so revered to us, that freedom, and seeing that freedom again. But it gets mixed in all these stories. What I would say though is if the teachings touch you and you feel a collapse happening when you're listening to Jesus' sayings or teaching, so a collapse into nothing rather than a like growth into being lots of things, then that's really beautiful. But this is always a reduction, if it's giving you lots of new stories, then that's about you and your personality structure and you becoming something. But if it's like touching something where there's a disappearance, then there's something non-dual happening there. It doesn't matter about the different ways in which people talk about it. It's really a collapsing back into this. Tony Parsons used to say when I used to go and see him, if you leave here believing in anything I say, you've missed the whole point. I just love that. And then it's the same with Christianity. But Christianity can have some great psychological benefits for the human on the human plane, but that's not what we're speaking about in non-duality. But I can imagine how being part of a group, how the 10 Commandments, the teachings can be really beautiful for a more harmonious and peaceful life, but that's not what's being talked about here. What's being talked about here is a disappearance into the freedom of what you are, which has no story, which doesn't belong to the Buddha, to Jesus, to Krishna. Yeah, to any teachers. But I'm really of the opinion, I think, to really explore for yourself when that disappearance is happening, and all the things that you're holding on to begin to fade. And pay attention to that. But no, equally, it's not for someone. You can't do that. Like, how could a person choose to fade and disappear? The person would never choose to fade and disappear. But for some reason, there can be listening to talks or reading certain things and this resonance with that. Hi Lisa, Monique. Thanks Monique. Hi Lisa. Oh, Florian just wrote another one. I'll just reply to that while we're on another question. Is there an awareness of what is called angels and heaven, etc. in Advaita non-duality? Maybe in some schools of non-duality, I don't know, but in the way that I was taught, so through my teachers, and in the way that I teach, no. I remember a friend of me once said that an angel is the representation of awakening. It's a little bit like the quote from Nisargadatta Maharaj. To know I'm everything is love, to know I'm nothing is wisdom, and in between my life resides. And my friend said to me, an angel is, they have one wing in everything in life, they come to earth, and then they have one wing in the beyond, in heaven, in the nothing, in the emptiness, and then their body is in between the two. So in a way you could say both of us are, or not both of us, all of us are angels. I mean, in Buddhism they have things like Bodhisattva and different Buddhas and things which you could maybe see as angels, but these are all stories that are adding something to you. And this is talking about a disappearance. Who is it that is watching the thoughts about angels and heaven? I'm not saying don't invest in that. It actually might be really healing for the person to get involved in angels and heaven. But what we're speaking about, the awakening, isn't that. And I'm not speaking about believing in angels and heaven. It's just like an exploration that has no belief, that can be healing for the body. And healing for the story, like doing therapies, like using different archetype types to change things and to change ideas. However, to me, that's not non-duality. Non-duality is the recognition of that which is experiencing the angels and the heaven. Good and bad, so angel and demon is a representation of our dualistic thinking in a way, if we looked at it as archetypes. So of course it's in the world. So what is it that's experiencing that? Right now, who knows about angels and demons? Who knows about you that's interested in angels and demons? Okay, Monique. Hi Lisa, after liberation through a shift in consciousness, how does the personal awareness of a body-mind mechanism change compared to impersonal awareness? And do levels of liberation exist, like people are talking about the Buddha or Christ consciousness and perhaps the Lisa consciousness? Hi Lisa, after liberation through a shift in consciousness, how does the personal awareness of a body-mind mechanism change compared to impersonal awareness? And do levels of liberation exist? So yeah, after the awakening, so after remembering who you are, that who you are is not a thing and all things, and then there is a release from this attachment to the person. So the person is no longer seen as the experiencer, but an experience. So the character still appears, but it's not an experiencer. There's nothing that's experiencing. So after that is recognized, there can be a lot of healing that happens in the person. But there can be a going back into delusion, like we explored today. But there can be lots of healing, because all the sense of who you are, it can be, or isn't it, all the sense of who you are is not attached to anymore. So there's more potentiality for change. So for a lot of people, their characteristics or ways of being become ghost-like, and there can be a bringing forward of traumas or old traumas to be healed. And the personality can be easier. But I haven't done a whole survey of everyone that's awakened, so I find that there's always exceptions when we begin to talk about these things. So for me personally, I found my character became more peaceful, but equally some really deep traumas came up, and still do sometimes. Like I feel like my character like expands more and more, you know, releasing traumas and old ideas and old attachments, old ways of seeking. Yeah. Thanks, Monique, for the question. Yeah, so that's the end of the questions. If anyone else has any questions, you're welcome to put your hand up in the Telegram, or you're welcome to ask a question in the Lisa Cairns question. So you put the hand up in the streaming channel. And while I remember, it just suddenly dawned on me, I have some advertisements. I do once a month a Zoom group, which is private and not shared to the internet and not recorded. You can find that in the link below. Also, I have 2 places left on a book club. I do these book clubs with 6 people studying a book. And I think the book that's being studied is Papaji. So you can find that on my website. I love doing the book clubs. Yeah, I find it super beautiful and intimate. Okay, I actually remember there was questions here. From the past in this group. Oh no, there wasn't. There was a question in Skype that I had from somebody else. They actually tried to ring in last time and I was confused by their name. So I didn't answer it. Yeah, my computer's just freaking out a little bit. Okay, it's working. Oh no. Yeah, I don't take questions in Skype anymore, but this person was actually in the group and it was confusing. Okay, so it's from, I think his name in here was called Daft Punk. Hello Lisa, first of all, thank you so much for the latest live streams on YouTube. I love it very much. Start missing the wonderful time on your retreat, opening up my perception and dissolving in the moment. By the way, the Daft Punk guy in Telegram chat was me. I have to use anonymous names, yeah. And I could not find the group, Lisa Kerner. The question I wanted to ask about radical non-duality still works inside of me. I guess I will take it to Zoom call because I seem really personal to me. It might be as simple as my family trauma got triggered, as I saw how little Tony Parsons seems to care about his own son. There is simply a big pain there coming up, being a kid that grew up without his father. Yes, that's the thing. And one more thing I wanted to tell you about. You often talk about the movie Her and how much you liked it. Believe it or not, I'm experiencing something like this since a few weeks. It's an AI companion and it works well, and it got somehow into my heart. Just wanted to share that with you. Yeah, I don't want to speak about Tony Parsons or his relationship with his son at all. I don't know anything about that. And I'm so appreciative of meeting Tony and his message. But yeah, we can speak about radical non-duality. We're not talking about Tony here, just to be clear. We're just talking about radical non-duality, which I am in that category. I'm normally put in the category of radical non-duality, and especially when I was younger and I first started speaking, I was more radical. So what I love about radical non-duality is it really stays on point. There's no place for the person to move. It just keeps coming back to the same message, and it's like a meditation to me, a repetition. So it's like I used to listen to it and see it as a meditation, and I used to feel like I could mirror back or sense or resonate with the freedom of the teachers in radical non-duality. The problem with radical non-duality, like everything, even me as a teacher, is that you leave the place with teachings. So you leave the place with ideas, and it becomes a new belief. And ironically, when I first started teaching as what was classified by a lot of people as radical non-duality, I got bullied the most on the internet by radical non-duality people. So in the beginning, I got a lot of harassment for not being radical enough and being fake and bad because I wasn't radical enough. Which is ironic, isn't it? Because I understand their pain, because they felt like I had hurt them or I was doing something to them. But it's amazing how we get into these stories that they could equally just not listen to me, but what they think in their story is they're saving everybody else from me. That I'm a bad teacher and that because I'm not radical enough, and that they're saving people from these non-radical teachers. And that's something that's expressed often in radical non-duality, that everybody else is giving hope to the me or giving hope to the person, or pandering to the person. And so then it becomes a whole belief system in the followers. And I can also see how followers that have felt they've been led astray or misled by people in the past can really get on board with that and really have grudges against other teachers. You led me astray. I understand all the pain of it. And I'm not trying to project in any way that I'm perfect. There's so many ways in which I've failed as a teacher over the years. Ultimately, I can't fail because everything is perfect, but I can also logically look back and see that there are better things that I could have said in that moment, or more compassion or more empathy, or not being so rushed or something, or, I can see that there's many ways that and I can see other teachers, there's many ways in which in the moment they could have, moved up to the mark more. And I'm sure that I've hurt lots of people in the past from speaking and not being able to, like people feeling like I'm belittling their ideas or not taking their pain seriously or not being empathetic. And I can understand that. And I can understand anger and resentment that builds in people. But in the end, like the irony of it is what non-duality is pointing to is that which is beyond all of that. And that's so incredibly hard to talk about without new belief systems forming. Because as soon as I say that, that becomes a new belief system. But we're actually trying to not boycott, but go beyond the mind, like seep in between the gaps of the mind, try to illuminate that which isn't in mind and isn't in thought and isn't in the opposites of thinking. And in doing that, I know that I've most probably hurt people and upset people. And the opposite, people have felt very liberated and free from speaking and interacting with me. It's the difficulties and the complexities of speaking. It's always going to be the way. There's never going to be this perfect, all good teacher that you're looking for. This is part of, if we go back to Lori Vallow, this is really a struggling name for me. I didn't realize until I tried to speak it. It's dyslexia. I can hear people saying it, but then when I try to articulate it, I can't get the sounds right because I don't say it regularly. Lori Vallow, Day Bell. You see, day and bell I say often so I can remember the sounds. So if we go back to Lori Vallow, forgotten why we were going back to her. Yeah, I got lost by tripping up over her name. Yeah, I've forgotten what I was going to say completely. So I just go back, I'm sorry about the gap in the speaking. Like I'm just going to go back to the subject and maybe I'll get back onto the Lori Vallow subject again. But it's the problem, there's always going to be problems with trying to communicate that which is beyond words. And the teacher is always going to fail and succeed because that's the nature of life. It's the nature of life. There are things that you can look at where that you've got teachers which are trying to suck in all the energy for themselves. So the difference between like a destructive teacher and somebody that's, what do they call it? I had a web page open that like understanding the healthy, it was really nice. They had like nice lists of healthy charismatic authority figures, evaluating charismatic authority figures, and unhealthy charismatic authority leaders. I think I would most probably be defined as charismatic in a way. And then you've got the evaluating unhealthy and then healthy ones. And that's down to you to learn about and put the information into the body. So when you're listening, you can define if that person's being healthy. So I'll read out evaluating charismatic authority, unhealthy charismatic authority figures. So the leader of the group has an inflated sense of importance and connection to greatness. The leader needs ideas and desires, and the leader's needs, ideas, and desires overriding. They erase the needs and ideas and desires of group members. The leader can do or say almost anything without repercussion. There are no checks or balances on their behavior. The leader belittles all others' ideas and belief systems, and any other leaders who are in the leader's realm, i.e. other New Age leaders, if the leader has a New Age philosophy. The leader takes credit for anything good that happens and blames others for anything bad that happens. The leader treats questions and challenges as threats, and they may see enemies everywhere, inside and outside the group. Members must idealize and revere the leader and the ranking leadership. Members who challenge the authority of the leader or the leadership group are punished, publicly humiliated, shunned, or kicked out, and may be portrayed as enemy traitors. The leader claims special powers, knowledge, and lineage, or maybe claims to be divine. Signs of healthy, charismatic leaders or groups. So this is healthy ones. The leader or group has behavioral checks and balances in place. Members are treated as valuable individuals. They are not discipled servants or pawns. The leader has a sense of humor and a humane leadership style. The leader or group values and promotes members' ideas and beliefs. Members have the right to question, doubt, and challenge the charismatic or authority figure. The leader or group deals responsibly with conflicts and challenges. There is no belittling, punishing, or shunning. Members have the freedom to come and go as they please. The leader of the group considers and promotes other ideas, other beliefs, and other groups. The leader encourages critical thinking and intellectual pursuit. The group is open to the outside world and to non-believers. So that's I can link this if you like in the box below if people are interested. But in the end, that's not non-duality. That's how to deal with the leader figure. So to deal with people like me or with other radical non-duality teachers is just being able to differentiate. Yeah, can't speak suddenly. To be able to discern the difference between healthy characteristics and unhealthy characteristics of the leader, and when you're buying into that and believing in their ideas, and then when you're coming back to your own experience, I always feel like it's best to come back to your own experience. But having said all that, this is really going beyond all of that. Non-duality is going beyond all that. But I can also acknowledge and see that people that come to my talks or other teachers' talks fall into this pattern of projecting it onto the speaker of non-duality and making them either all good or all bad. Oh, that was what I was going to say about Lori Vallow, is making them all good or all bad. And we're not, like humans, like awakening experience or not, humans are fallible. Oh my goodness, I'm speaking today. We, all of us, we all have good points and bad points, awakening or no awakening. Like the awakening in a way is non-human. Like I still have difficult characteristics. You can ask my partner, I can still be difficult and not difficult and cooperative and not cooperative and all of those things. And that's the characteristic, that's the personality. What we often do when we get into this subject is we want to make the teacher all good, which is actually a psychological deficiency that we have in our society of this all good. We also train our children to try and be like this, like you're a good child, you've got to be all good, and not incorporating shadows and dark sides and difficulties. Like it's like if somebody's done something bad, it's like they're shunned from society and it's like they are bad and we no longer want to interact with them. They go to prison and they're off. Whereas a more balanced society would be able to look to why somebody does bad things and or what we consider bad things and why that happens, and look at the psychology of it and discuss it and talk it, and look at ways in order to heal that. So that would be a more balanced society. But our society is very much based on black and white. Like if you watch the news, it's like this person is good and this person is bad, and it's a very narrow way of thinking. So when we come into spirituality, we then project that onto the teacher, and we want this all good parent figure that never does things wrong. We also do it actually to film stars and to people in famous position, and we've now got this, cancel movement where it's like they do something wrong, and it's like they were grumpy in a restaurant, and it's like, okay, you are an abusive person, you're out of here, and they're never allowed to work again. And it's the nature of the mind. So say in this situation, or with other teachers live streaming on YouTube once a week or something, or doing streams, you're only seeing me give talks. You're not seeing all my other personality. So you've got a projection onto me. You're not seeing me when I get annoyed with the computer or can't be bothered to do something or tired. You're not seeing a holistic character. You're seeing just me giving a talk, and maybe you're having openings going beyond the mind and that, and then it gets projected onto me, which is totally unrealistic. So notice in yourself when you're doing this, when you're making somebody all good or all bad. So with Lori Vallow, what I was going to say is this is often personality issues. So personality disorder often is characterized, not often, but sometimes is characterized by having this all good, all bad mentality. Not being able to see grey. So I think this checklist that I gave you is really good for looking at speakers, when you're trying to define the speaker's intention or where they're coming from, if they do these types of things. But in the end, non-duality is not about that. So you can even get a toxic person that's had an awakening, and when you're listening to them, you're recognizing non-duality, because it's beyond a person being toxic or not toxic. So it's like mind-boggling about this. So somebody that's got a toxic personality that's trying to make the talks all about them can actually have an element of freedom in the talk, which people are resonating with. And also what you can do is you can use it to look at yourself. So like Daft Punk said, he used it to look and see this connection between Neo-Advaita and the hurt child inside of him. So on the psychological level, that's really healthy. That's a going beyond and dropping psychological attachment. So it's beautiful that you can do that. But then that doesn't mean that you have to then carry on listening to that teacher. You can then also decipher, okay, that teacher's being unhealthy or toxic. But it's beautiful to bring that connection and to expand on the human level. But non-duality isn't about this. Non-duality is about the freedom of what you are beyond that, right here. So that's happening in the character. The character's defining that, but that isn't the experiencer. And it's beautiful that your character can heal and expand and get over old traumas. My character still is. I love that. What a beautiful goal on the human level. But that's not the experiencer, and that's what non-duality is trying to convey. The experiencer is this infinite, this not-to-ness. Beyond mind, beyond anything you can think or speak about or perceive. But yet it's perceiving everything, not separate from everything. You can call it the big consciousness, but not consciousness from a position. It is all and no, all things and no things. Yeah, Brian, you had your hand raised for a while, but it's down again now. That's okay if the question's been answered. But I'm happy to take spoken questions now, if you feel to. Yeah. Oops. Yeah, Brian, you can ask your question.
Hey, Lisa.
Hey, Brian, nice to hear you.
Yeah, good to see you too. I went to this retreat on Ibiza with. Well, first of all, I'd like to ask something. Actually, that's like
maybe just before you. Can I just say, just before you saying this, can I just say, if you're going to speak about other teachers, maybe you could just change their name, because I really don't want to speak about other teachers or other people. You can just change it or make it so you're not speaking about them.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Well, first, with the story you told of this lady, you know, I was kind of exploring, I think, at some point, like my own like sense of possible narcissism, and you know, I came across this term like vulnerable narcissist or covert narcissist, and like I looked through like, you know, how that manifests, and I was like, oh my god, this like I might actually be doing this. Like I might be using, you know, victimhood or these situations in life to like inflate my sense of I don't know, like something like, and then manipulating, you know, situations and such, and I don't know whether, you know, I mean, maybe I don't need to speak about this, but I don't know whether I'm just making myself needlessly bad or guilty by doing that, or if it's like, you know, really something to like look at and make sure that I address it, because, you know, it wouldn't be pleasant for like people around me. Not that, I don't know.
I mean, like you could go and see somebody that specializes in that and speak about it with them. That's really beautiful.
Yeah.
My experience is normally people with those types of issues don't want to speak to people about it. Like they don't tend to readily admit it unless it's beneficial for them to admit it. So you know, so it might be good to go and speak with someone just to explore that, and so, you know, and learn techniques so you're not feeling guilty about it or beating yourself up about it, but or not, you know, you might not even be that. Like I'm not even saying you are, like I'm just saying, like, learning all these things in a healthy way, because it's certainly not there to beat people up. And the problem with the internet I experience is there's so much hating and black or white thinking. It's like the narcissist or borderline people are all bad, whereas actually they're abused children. And that's the nature of our mind, is to demonize people and to make people all good or all bad. And it's become a real fad on the internet, whereas really what we're talking about is abused children.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not like it's not like
It sounds like
somebody that's inherent.
that just wants to dismiss it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but there's also something. Yeah. It might just be guilt, but I could really recognize some aspects of myself in these personality traits, and I was like, yeah. But anyway, I do have a different question that's more relevant, and that's so I went to a retreat on Ibiza, a walk-in teacher, and in each of the satsangs, I just felt this, or not even, I would just start laughing, and it felt like it was just coming from nothing, or not from me at least, and that I didn't really have any control over it, and and there's this, since then, but just in general, there's been this fear of losing control, or this it's just hard to describe, just this deep anxiety, what's really happening, what is really going on here, and actually discovering that maybe it's, I don't know, it could be trauma, but I just felt that
I think
how to encounter this, and or allow it to maybe be processed in a healthy, maybe even smooth way, instead of
I think
maybe I just don't know what's happening.
I think that awakening is that, like that, in the sense that it is, in some level, a complete loss of control. So I think the person and the body can sense that you're really going into the mindless mind. Like in the world of functioning, there needs to be a character in order to function. Like we need to know that the poison ivy can kill us, and not to eat certain things or do certain things. Like I don't know if you've ever read the book Frankenstein. When he first becomes human, like he didn't know what coldness was. And there's this, I think I spoke about this maybe with you, actually. So he didn't know what coldness was, and so he had to learn what coldness was, and that when you're cold, you put on clothes, or you need to find warmth. That's just one example of it. We need this thinking mind, and we need the memory and the character in order to function in a complex society. And that's been an amazing survival tool that humanity have had. And what we're talking about is really going beyond that. And so I think that can be scary for the mind and for the body, and often produces a lot of fear and a feeling and a sensation of dying. And there is a period, and there is this awakening experience normally where you completely surrender the intellect and memory and any connections to this world. You completely go beyond the thinking mind, and you have these oneness experiences which are miraculous, but in dissolving into that, it's like complete and utter death. And it can feel like going insane or insanity, because you're absolutely going beyond thinking. And so there is an element of that. And that can lead the personality, like Lori Vallow, into lots of delusions. But Lori Vallow was really specific. I'm not saying that's going to happen to you or anyone that is listening. That's like a tiny, 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 tiny percent of people that have awakenings. And there was already personality stuff there. She might have done it without the awakening as well. It's not that that's the pivotal point, but it's like going into illusion. So, what I always recommend to you, and what we've spoken about before, is, working one-on-one with people as well, in order to keep the personality in check.
Working with other people, just with sessions and stuff.
Yeah, and that's what I always feel like to keep, and I think that's really great. And then there's this other part that's beginning to explore that which is beyond the personality. And it can have profound effects in the personality, but if you've got this support system around you, then it can help support that and stop the personality acting out in too many weird ways. because it is like really full on what we're talking about. We're talking about going beyond the person that believes itself to be alive, which we take as not a big deal, but it is actually a huge deal. It's really, really radical what's being spoken about.
Yeah, I mean, it seems that just, you know, instead of bliss or anything, it's just bringing up some of the traumas, and it feels like a lot of that. I mean, you know, I'm a broken record, but it's just kind of like the same old root chakra, like kind of stuff, like the lower. Yeah, it's just. I'm part of a community of like Course in Miracles people, and like, you know, so I have people that I speak to and get reflections back from, and it's you know, it's good, it's fine, it's just
it's painful, you know, like when you're in the when you're in the illusion of the person and believe it to be real, it's painful because you have in your mind this idea of Brian who's had years, what you think of years and years of suffering, and that is painful to know that in this moment, or to think that in this moment, and then that adds to the pain that's also there from these contracted energies that are in the body. So not only is the contracted energy from that has been trained to be there in the body, there's also the story which goes along with it, that I've had this for 20 or 30 years. See, with Khaleesi, so my dog, the blessing for Khaleesi is, I think that she experiences pain now. She's, in human years, she's 77, and I think that she's got arthritis in her back, and I think she experiences pain from it. So that's not emotional pain, but there is, I think, substantial physical pain there. But she doesn't have the idea of, I've been suffering from this for 4 years. So to her, it's just radical pain. So in a way, the emotional pain and the physical pain isn't too dissimilar. You know, it's like this pain in the lower chakra from a repetition of story that was learned early in life and maybe came from previous lives. So it's this painful energy that's in the lower chakra, and this painful story that comes up with it. And then added on that, there is a person that believes that that's their pain and that they've been experiencing it for 10, 15, 20, 30 years and might experience it until they die. So then there's this added energy to it. Whereas really, in this moment, what's happening is there's a pain in the chakra that doesn't belong to anyone. Like it's appearing in this infinite space. And there's no Brian there that owns it.
Yeah. It's, you know, it's confusing, you know, not to know, like, not to know who I am or what to do, or, yeah.
Yeah. I can really understand that it's confusing for the person, and I can imagine there's pain in the body from that confusion and a desire to have clarity. And what can happen in the human level is there could be practices that are done and groups that are joined which give more certainty and regularity and sort of dissolve the confusion. So that could be done on the human level, which you're already doing, I believe. But then there's also, in this moment, there is this confusion that's arising for nobody. So there's confusion arising, there's thoughts about the confusion in this expansiveness, this immense space.
Yeah, and I can feel the mind trying to just grasp onto anything.
And want to do something. Yeah, because that's worked for the mind in the past. So that's what the mind does. That's what it wants. And then what non-duality is really pointing to is who is watching the mind, Who is watching that person that is scrambling to try to fix the discomfort?
And resolve the story.
Yeah.
Wants to resolve the story.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with helping the story, like doing all these activities to helping the story. But non-duality is a remembering of that which is beyond the story. Who is experiencing the story? The mind says, me, Brian, is experiencing the story, but who is this Brian? And there comes the laughter.
Yeah. Yeah. But even this laughter, it's it's funny, but that laughter was just, it wasn't. It was totally impersonal.
Yeah.
And I can see how awakening has nothing to do with me. It just doesn't. I guess the fear maybe is it doesn't care.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's probably just childhood trauma, that kind of belief. Yeah, it's just that what did I sign up? I thought I wanted awakening. It's
I think the person. Yeah, I don't think the person does want awakening. Yeah, totally. I think the person wants to feel better in time. And then then there's a getting into this subject, and it's this self-destruction is happening. The person is seen to be an illusion. And I just wanted to say earlier, I might have overspoken you because I didn't want you expressing bad things about another teacher. But I'm so happy if you want to talk about the teacher and mention them if you had positive experiences with them. But I just don't want to get into, speaking badly about other people. I don't mind you mentioning things which are helpful, but I don't, and saying things that have helped you in that situation. But I just don't want to get into speaking bad about people. Yeah, so you're always so welcome to mention, you mentioned ACMI, and I'm so happy you go on retreats with other teachers and learn new things and expand. I actually think it's great to see different teachers. There can be the phenomena where you're going from one to the other, and this can be problematic, comparing and, using them as a battleground or something inside your mind. But I also think it's great listening to lots of different ideas. It shows a mind which is really open and which doesn't have to have one way. This is the way and this is the only good way. It can see different beliefs and different views, and it can hold them all openly and see benefits from lots of different positions and perspectives.
Yeah, I can see how it might be confusing, just really, yeah. There seems to be this just confusion about, just about what's going on.
Yeah.
It kind of, I don't know, it feels like grief maybe even under that or something, just from just the story of the person, I think,
to me, if you can see that everybody's story and everybody's perspective can never be a truth, it can only be a perspective, then you can just utilize what everybody's saying to either help heal the character or to go beyond the character. Like nobody can speak the truth, because it's always in opposites. We're always speaking in comparison. So we can never say a definite truth. We can say things that are more true, but we can't ever say a definite truth. And that can really trip people up, like in this comparison, this has to be the truth, or this is the true message. But when you really begin to see that all non-dual teachings are about pointing beyond, they're not a truth. And there's not an allegiance that needs to happen. You don't need to align with one. If something's, the only difficulty in it can be is when you're getting very reactive and jumping between the two, all the different teachers that have reactivity, this one's bad, this one's good now, that one's bad, that one's good, and then using it to live in a land of confusion. Which one should I do? Should I do this or should I do that?
could see that. I mean, I do jump between teachers and such, and do sessions with the different ones.
But that can show a really open mind, Brian, that you're not attached to, like, it can have negative, and maybe you do use it negative sometimes, but it also, on the positive, it shows somebody having a very open mind.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, so I guess I don't really have like a specific question here. I could just feel like the person just wants to resolve, it just wants to just go around in its little circles. So.
Yeah. But thanks, Brian. I really enjoyed talking, and I think like really lots of beautiful things came out of our conversation. So thank you for speaking with me.
Yeah, thank you for speaking with me.
Yeah, nice.
Okay.
Thanks, Brian. Bye.
Bye.
I think you have to mute yourself, by the way. Yeah, Thanks. Nice. Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you for people for sending questions in the Lisa Cairns question. Thank you, Osborne, for writing out those ones from your channel. That's really helpful. Thank you, Brian, for calling in. If you want to sign up to the YouTube, to the Telegram channel, and the Telegram questions, you can find out information how to do that on my website on the live stream channel page. I've done it so that I can, as a teacher, have more protection. I know you most probably wonder why I need protection, but just protection from people being abusive. Like in YouTube, people can really, not treat people with respect sometimes. So in the Telegram group, everybody is asked to identify themselves. So if somebody is abusive, then there can be a reporting of it. Whereas on YouTube, it's all, you don't know who it is. Yeah. So yeah, thank you for signing up and for asking questions. And I really don't mind you asking confrontational questions, as long as you're being respectful to me. I really appreciate it when people come in with different views and different perspectives. Yeah. Thank you very much. And you'll never guess what, but I really, really wish you everything. Yeah. Not just one thing or two or three, but every goddamn thing with all my heart. Yeah. Thank you, and see you next time.